Howdy folks, and welcome to another episode of Mingles with Jingles. I hope you all had a good weekend. Now forget it, because it's Monday. So, the ongoing saga of the kitchen remodel is complete. Well, it's not quite complete. I'm still waiting for a few bits and pieces to turn up. But the kitchen has been built. I'm still waiting for my new fridge and freezer to arrive. But other than that, pretty much everything's in place. And wow, what a difference. Over the course of the last 2 weeks, while we've been eating microwave dinners and takeaways, fantasizing about what it was going to be like to actually be able to cook food again, I've been, I suppose binging is the right word, on cooking videos on YouTube. One channel in particular, Binging with Babish, influenced by the food that you see in movies and TV shows. Things like the sausage and tomato pasta that they cooked in prison in Goodfellas. Things like I'm not even sure how to pronounce it properly, but in Once Upon a Time in Mexico, Johnny Depp was in a cantina somewhere in Mexico, and they were eating something that I think was called puerco pibli. It's basically spicy pork that was so good. Once he finished it, he said he was going to pay the check, go into the kitchen, and shoot the cook. So he couldn't make it for anybody else. Stuff like this. And other things that I'm really looking forward to doing, like, homemade pizzas, not frozen store-bought pizzas, actually making the dough and making the pizza sauce rather than getting it out of a jar. And I'm probably going to be recording it, and we'll be putting some videos up. But I don't think it's not the sort of thing that is really suitable for this channel. These are gaming videos. So I think what I'm going to do is start another channel with all of the real life stuff when I take the video camera out. So when I finally get back to doing museum visits and filming tanks and aircraft and stuff like that, and cooking in the kitchen and making stuff, maybe even the return of Workshop Wednesday, cat videos, things like that, things that don't really belong on this channel because this is primarily a gaming channel. The other channel probably won't get updated as often, certainly won't get updated every day the way this channel does. But I feel that I should be keeping those two types of videos separate. So we'll see how it goes, but that is the intention. Speaking of intentions, the intention for today's episode of Mingles with Jingles was supposed to be the new style, sitting down in front of and talking directly to the camera type of Mingles with Jingles. Unfortunately, events conspired against me. The reason being that the room where I record that type of episode of Mingles is still basically cluttered up with stuff that needs to go back into the kitchen. So maybe next week. I realise there are some of you who prefer this type of episode of Mingles, and there are some of you who prefer the newer style of Mingles. And no matter what I decide, somebody somewhere is going to be upset about it and is going to let us know all about it in the comments section. That, unfortunately, is just the way things are. Speaking of the new kitchen, I suppose I may as well show you some pictures. Starting with day one of the kitchen rebuild, after the builders had come in and ripped out everything, thereby probably actually improving the value of the kitchen. It was bad, okay? I mean, just look at the floor. Those tiles, in fact, they're not even tiles. That's linoleum. And that's 1970s if ever I saw it. Trust me, I remember the 1970s. It was just nasty. And there wasn't any space for anything. You couldn't really do anything in there other than the most basic cooking. And this is what it looks like now. And I can't wait to get started. But I'm going to have to wait because my new fridge and freezer doesn't actually arrive until, well, I don't know when. It's in stock. It's at the warehouse. They're going to be contacting me to arrange a delivery. So I have kind of limited ingredients available at the moment, but I'm telling you right now, immediately after I've completed recording this episode of Mingles with Jingles, I'm heading straight down to that kitchen and I'm going to make myself a nice big fat croque monsieur, which is basically just a very fancy French fancy. Well, I suppose it is fancy. It's a very fancy French name for a toasted cheese and ham sandwich, but not any ordinary cheese and ham sandwich. Oh no, non, monsieur, in fact. This was inspired by a sandwich that appeared on the TV show Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And if I do it properly, according to Binging with Babish, it's going to end up looking like this. Gonna have me some of that. Anyway, back to business. So, how about those NVIDIA RTX 3090s? You know, it does make me laugh. Back when I announced that I was getting a new PC, primarily for 4K video rendering, for which your graphics card isn't actually important, RAM and CPU are, unless you're using DaVinci as your video editing software, which does take full advantage of your GPU. But I'm not using DaVinci, so the graphics card wasn't actually that important. And of course, everybody said, oh no, Jingles, this is the worst possible time to be buying a new PC with the NVIDIA 3000 series graphics cards just about to be released. Never mind that I wouldn't even be able to order a 3080 graphics card for a month. And then, of course, you had the utter fiasco of the 3080 launch, which was dominated by scalpers using bots and scripts to snap up every available 3080 graphics card within minutes of their going on sale and then sticking them on eBay for double the price. Now, that didn't particularly bother me because I didn't actually need a 3080 graphics card. I mean, it would be nice to have one, but the 2080 Super that I got with the new PC works just fine for pretty much everything other than Microsoft Flight Sim 2020, where on high settings I can manage about 20 frames per second. But then again, Microsoft Flight Sim 2020 is more CPU limited because it only uses a maximum of 4 CPU cores. 3080 would have helped though. But again, you know, I didn't need one. It would be nice to have one, but I didn't need one. So I waited a week after the official launch date. Mostly because I also, I had a couple of other problems. First, I wanted to see some reviews of the cards, some reviews of actual cards rather than the Founders Edition and so on and so on. And secondly, I wasn't entirely sure I'd be able to fit one into my new system because 3080s draw around about 320 watts of power. And I have a 650 watt power supply, but it turns out that that should be fine as long as I don't get an overclocked card. So I went to overclockers.co.uk and I pre-ordered myself an Asus TUF 3080. And then of course the news started coming in that there was something wrong with the cards. Now, I misreported last week. I said that EVGA had determined that there was a problem with what I said with the transistors. I misspoke. I meant the capacitors. And there were problems with the capacitors. But it turns out that the problems with the capacitors were a symptom of the actual problem and not the cause of the actual problem. Somebody noticed, and this is why I love the internet, somebody noticed that PCs that were running, do you pronounce it Linux or Linux? That operating system that isn't Windows. Well, some brave soul noticed that the same 3080 RTX cards that were crashing to desktop on Windows-based PC systems were not suffering the same problems on Linux-based PC systems. And apparently NVIDIA took notice, because within days there was a new Windows driver out with no corresponding Linux driver. And this was really good news for me because I was seriously thinking about cancelling the order that I'd made at overclockers.co.uk, because if there was a hardware problem, if the capacitors were in fact the issue, then I didn't want to buy an existing card. I wanted to wait until the problem had been fixed on a hardware level and then order a card. But, well, if it's a driver issue, fantastic. And it's just as well, because I placed this order. Let me just see if I can find the date. Yep. I placed the order for an Asus GeForce RTX 3080 TUF Gaming GPU on the 21st of September, so 2 weeks ago. I didn't have to cancel the order because there isn't, as far as anybody's aware, any actual hardware issues. It was all fixed by NVIDIA's new driver. And 2 days ago, I got a follow-up email. I mean, I knew they were out of stock, but 2 days ago, I got a follow-up email from Overclockers UK let me know my position in the queue. So after 2 weeks, my queue position, just for this particular brand of card, don't forget there's all kinds of different brands and different, you've got overclocked versions of the same cards from multiple different manufacturers, but just for this specific card, 2 weeks after ordering it, I am in queue position 1363. So I reckon if I'm lucky, I might get it in time for Christmas. Oh yeah, Jingles, just wait for the 3080. It'll be out in a few weeks, they said. Yeah, right. Well, alright, but what does any of this have to do with the 3090 launch? Well, indirectly, nothing. But, well, here's the thing. The first thing you have to bear in mind is the 3090 is not a gaming card. Regardless of what Nvidia would like you to believe with their marketing prior to the launch, it's 114% more expensive than a 3080 and it gets you about 10% more performance. So if you're buying a 3090 for gaming and not for productivity, 3D work, stuff like that, where the purchase of a 3090 is entirely justified, if you're buying one for gaming, you're either an idiot or you're very, very desperate. And judging by what happened with the 3080 launch, I think a lot of people were very, very desperate to get their hands on a 3090, because here's what happened when it went on sale. At 9 AM Eastern Time on the 24th of September, the 3090 was officially available for sale. And before even a minute had expired, it was listed as out of stock on Nvidia's own website. At 9:03 AM, eBuyer's website had pre-orders available for the RTX 3090 in the UK with availability at the end of October. 2 minutes after this, at 9:05 AM Eastern Time, so 5 minutes after the card went on sale, Newegg listed all of its RTX 3090s as being out of stock. At the same time, Best Buy's search function started turning up an error when you searched for RTX 3090. Although this was apparently just a case of their search engine being overloaded, because 3 minutes after that, at 9:08 AM, Best Buy returned and multiple RTX 3090 models were available to add to your cart. 5 minutes later, at 9:13 AM, there were still some cards available from PNY, MSI and Gigabyte at Best Buy. 3 minutes after that, Newegg started listing all RTX 3090s with a notify when in stock button. 7 minutes later, there was a single MSI RTX 3090 listed on Best Buy as available. And 4 minutes later, Best Buy started listing all of its RTX 3090s as out of stock. 3 minutes after that, Best Buy were also completely out of stock, not just of the cards themselves, but complete PC systems built around 3090 cards. All of that happened within 30 minutes of the RTX 3090 cards officially going on sale. Now to me, that means either one of two things happened. First, since the launch of the 3080, millions of people across the world have suddenly gotten into 3D animating and rendering. Or, since the launch of the 3080, lots of people got very, very pissed off, couldn't get themselves a 3080, and had paid more than double the price of a 3080 to get the roughly 10 to 15% extra performance that the 3090 offers instead, for gaming. I don't think I'm ever going to be quite that desperate in order to get an extra 10 frames per second out of Microsoft Flight Sim 2020, but hey, I guess I'm clearly in the minority where that sort of thing's concerned. All of this, of course, has had a knock-on effect for anybody who was hoping to get the budget-level version of the 3000 series graphics cards, the RTX 3070, which has had its release date postponed by 2 weeks to the 29th of October, presumably to ensure that there are actually going to be enough in stock that people will be able to buy them, which will be a first for a 3000 series graphics card launch. Although it's possible that the date they've chosen, the 29th of October, wasn't by accident, because the day before, on the 28th of October, AMD are going to be announcing the details of their new 6000 series GPUs. So it's entirely possible that Nvidia deliberately picked the 29th of October to release the 3070 series of cards just to try to mess around with the news coming out of AMD. Who knows? I wouldn't put it past them. Speaking of things that have been delayed, the Shadowlands expansion for World of Warcraft is not going to make its October 27th release date. It doesn't actually have an official release date yet, not that I'm aware of, but they're still aiming for it to come out at some point in 2020, which is about as vague as Blizzard Activision can possibly be on the subject. And we do know that apparently the pre-patch is still coming out on October the 13th. Which will introduce, I think, the new leveling system and, stuff and things that I really can't get excited about. I mean, I've been playing World of Warcraft not quite since launch, but pretty soon afterwards. The server that I have most of my characters and my original characters on was the second wave of servers to be activated in the popularity of World of Warcraft's launch, and I joined that server the day it was switched on. So I've been playing World of Warcraft for a long, long time, and I got into the Shadowlands Alpha, which I was very grateful for, but unfortunately the game itself just didn't really excite me. I'm not going to say it didn't interest me. I'm going to play it, but I don't really care that it's been delayed. I'll play it when it's ready. What I am looking forward to, very much, are Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which I've got a free copy of. Well, not free. It came with my new PC, so looking forward to that when it's available. And of course, Cyberpunk 2077. Apparently CD Projekt Red have just entered the crunch phase in order to get the game shipped in time for its revised November release date. Now, I realise this is, and rightly so, a bit of a touchy subject with game developers. Other studios have received a lot of flack this year for the punishing crunch schedules that they impose upon their development teams. But it does look like CD Projekt Red are at least trying to keep it classy. The studio head posted a message on Twitter acknowledging the extra work being done in the lead up to the release of the game. This is all from PC Gamer's news site, by the way, saying that mandating the extra hours is one of the hardest decisions he's had to make, and saying that the majority of the team understands the need for extra hours. Team members are well compensated for every extra hour they put in, and also noted that 10% of the company's annual profits are split among employees. This in the news that CD Projekt Red are now moving to a 6-day working week ahead of Cyberpunk 2077's launch. As long as they get the game out in a reasonable time frame, I mean, I wouldn't be that bothered if it slipped another couple of weeks, maybe into the beginning of December. As long as it's done when it's done, and nobody's health suffers as a result of getting the game out on time, I'll be happy. Other news that I completely forgot to mention last week. I did say in last week's episode I knew there was something that I was supposed to talk about and it had completely slipped my mind, and that was of course the sale of Bethesda to Microsoft. Well, it wasn't the sale of Bethesda, it was the sale of Bethesda's parent company, Zenimax, for $7.5 billion. Or roughly $1 per bug. All joking aside, it was a pretty good joke though. Come on, it's Bethesda. But yeah, all joking aside, the purchase of Zenimax didn't just buy Bethesda for Microsoft. They also got their hands on other companies, like id Software, for example. So Microsoft owns Doom now. But why the sudden scramble to buy up Zenimax? And therefore studios like id and Bethesda? I mean, id's recent Doom game has done pretty well, but Bethesda haven't done anything in the last 2 years other than one fuck up after another. Well, the answer may lie in an interview with Bethesda's founder, who by the way no longer works for Bethesda and is sort of semi-retired and is now mostly a gaming academic. In an interview with Inverse, Christopher Weaver, when questioned on the subject of whether or not he believed Bethesda's future games will eventually become console exclusive to Xbox, said, "I don't think it's any accident that this announcement occurred so close to Sony's PlayStation 5 announcement. There are only a limited number of proven creators of AAA games, and what Microsoft owns, Sony cannot get." So it's possible, maybe even likely, that Microsoft bought ZeniMax in order to ensure some console exclusives for the Xbox from the likes of Bethesda and id. Not that that should bother any of us, of course, because we are members of the glorious PC gaming master race. anything that Microsoft publishes on the Xbox is going to come out on the PC as well. And Sony have also recently announced, which I covered in at least 2 previous episodes of Mingles with Jingles, that they're pretty much done with PlayStation 4 and therefore PlayStation 5 exclusives as well, at least as far as the PC is concerned. So you can expect to see both Xbox and PlayStation titles appearing on the PC, just not on the Xbox if it's a PlayStation title, and on the PlayStation if it's an Xbox title. So the only real winners from the next round of console wars probably going to be us. It's a great time to be a proud card-carrying member of the glorious PC gaming master race. In other news, the second developer's diary for the new Odyssey expansion for Elite, which is due out early next year, was leaked a little ahead of schedule, which was kind of annoying. A select group of, can we call them community contributors? You know, in the same way that Wargaming does? I suppose so, although I don't think that Frontier Developments has an official name, but there are a bunch of influencers, God I hate that word, who do YouTube videos and blogs and that sort of thing about Elite. And between us we get a little early warning about things that are due to be coming, such as the second developer diary video. Unfortunately, somebody in Frontier Developments uploaded the video to YouTube, put it on a playlist, set it as unlisted, and somebody, I mean, it wasn't a leak as much as an oops, somebody was checking the playlist, saw this sudden unlisted video appear there, clicked on it, and oh look, second developer diary video, more news about Elite Odyssey, and told everybody. And so, like I said, not exactly a leak, more of an oops moment. But the video contained all kinds of stuff about getting out your ship and walking around in spaceports and outposts and settlements and all kinds of good stuff. Plus the news that there's going to be a new service in the game, which will basically function as a sort of galactic tourist agency. You'll be able to travel the galaxy without actually getting into your own ship by booking passenger flights. Now, whether or not this means you're going to be able to book a flight to Colonia, 22,000 light years away, and simply leave the computer running for 3 days while the passenger liner takes you there, I don't know. But that sort of thing is generally going to be available. Also, don't forget, and I did mention this in last week's episode, but the Horizons expansion, the first expansion for Elite, which currently is a standalone purchase as of October the 27th, will be free to anybody who owns the base game. And I think that just about covers it for this week's roundup of PC gaming and what's going on with my kitchen news. I'm not getting that I've definitely forgotten something feeling this week, although that doesn't mean anything. Just because I don't feel like I haven't forgotten anything doesn't mean I haven't forgotten anything. But I don't feel as if I've forgotten anything. Of course, it's far too late now because I'm about to put this episode to bed. So feel free to remind me in the comments, as you always do, if there was anything momentous that happened this week or that is about to happen, such as, for example, Baldur's Gate 3 going into early access this week. Just let me know in the comments. But other than that, I think I'm done. I need to get myself down to my new kitchen and cook my ass one of these. Well, not my ass, but you know what I mean. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed today's video. Hope you all had a great weekend. And as always, take care, stay safe, and I'll catch you next time.